we're at the last slide, Kimberly. I don't know if does anybody have any questions, and then I can go into, and we may have a little bit more time here, but I did want to walk through some of the resources that have proved well. See if anybody has any questions on my side.
Sure. So if anyone has any questions at this time, you are more than welcome to write them in the chat box, and then we can ask Deb. This would be the time to do it, so then she can move forward with this slide. So if you any questions about maybe your own personal experience, something that you're experiencing in your current work in the United States or in Spain or wherever in the world, this is the time to ask. So let's see.
Really, I do have one question too before we jump into how many people do we have? Is everybody in the hotel industry, or do we have restaurants? Do we have other areas, cruise lines?
Yeah, all of them.
That'd be great to know.
Yeah,
everybody's in the hotels.
No, hotel in the restaurants.
The entire space.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
Great.
Okay,
great.
So one question is, any tips on how to better or manage better the work-life balance when we are in such industry that requires us to work during holidays and festivities?
It's a hard one. I worked a great deal earlier on in my career and missed a lot of important, right? They're celebrating when we're taking care of them and everybody around us is doing. But I think with the personal time that you do have, making sure that you know what you want to do with it. I would say set up your days accordingly whenever possible. Try and get outside, try and read a book, try and do things that matter most to you, see the people that matter most. Sometimes it's one day, holidays, if you can see those people or not, try and get with those people before your day that you have to work, especially if it's Christmas or whatever holiday that you celebrate. Just try and plan it out.
Okay, great. Yeah, so someone said they're in the hotel industry within a restaurant. Another student said they're in the hotel industry. If you have any other questions, you can write them in the chat box. This is the time to ask Deb. As a leader, what qualities do you encourage to your team?
Being honest, transparent, vulnerable, and taking care of each other. Most importantly, taking care of each other.
Okay, great. And then another one is, how have you previously shown courage to your team?
I would say how I handled guest interactions that have not been very nice, if you will. I've had one that stands out. I've had guests berate me in front of my team, and keeping your cool, keeping my cool during a very could have been a very confrontational time, and courage in the sense of courage to know that everybody was watching and my team was watching, and when you're obviously in your leadership, you know that you're in a glass house and everybody's paying attention to what you do. And this person really came at me for something that was, I felt it was unacceptable. But at the end of the day, my team came to me and said, I can't believe that you held your cool. And well, it's like your kids, right? And that's how I think of it. What they're seeing is how they're gonna necessarily behave or be in the next phase in their space. So maybe that taught them, if Deb did it, she handled it. We don't need to be aggressive, and we don't need to be some way that we don't necessarily feel it's going to impact any sort of change. It's going to make things worse. So yeah, thank you for that question.
Another one says, How could you avoid being taken advantage since you have shown vulnerability? Because as per experience, some employees are taking advantage of the leaders showing vulnerability.
Yeah, great question. You got to let yourself, unfortunately, you're going to be burned. Being the intense person and being the intense leader that I was and coming down from that, I was burned a couple of times. And, it goes back to those questions that were asked earlier on. You got to learn from them. You got to make it, it'll make you better. But without those, you're not going to be able to say, okay, well, I've been through this, I've been through that. And I really find that, again, those times of vulnerability and those times of when you really don't know, we don't really know what just happened. I've had proteges of mine steal. I've had people that I've encouraged their growth, and that hurts, right? But again, that's the small amount of the masses of those people that you have put forward and that don't take you for granted, or the type of person that you are for granted.
Great.
Welcome that. I would welcome that feeling and welcome those.
This person is asking for advice on carrying a strong mindset for excellent service throughout the whole day and not leaving, oh, sorry, I can't see that. And not leaving any single guest disappointed in a business hotel with more than 300 rooms.
Can you say the beginning of that
Sure.
question
It's
again?
just an advice on carrying the strong mindset that you were speaking about for excellent service throughout the entire day without leaving one single guest disappointed in a very, very large hotel.
Well, let me tell you, if you can get through your entire day without having a guest complaint or that's what we're supposed to be doing here, right? But I think leaning in on each other, and not allowing the guests to see you sweat is how it's going to be. I would say sometimes you just got to be honest with the guest. Be vulnerable with the guest as well. I find often that, when they know that you are taking care of them, and when they know that there's a situation that is a vulnerable or a situation that doesn't come up very often, they're gonna say, they're gonna remember that you impacted their life. So I hope that answered at least part of it.
So the next question is, how can you handle busy days as a supervisor or leader when your employees don't have much experience in the hospitality industry, or their English level might be a little lower?
I think this is when you have to be more available, right? You have to, maybe you don't have enough time, or you feel like you don't have enough time, but I think there might be some areas where you, instead of being pulled into the office or being pulled into maybe you had yourself stationed in another area of the operation, spending a little bit more time with those people, asking them maybe before their shift, do you have a little bit of time, and work with them. I think I had mentioned there were several people that I've coached who are now running their own operations who just came in on their extra time, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or trying to stand behind them, listen to hear what they're saying and how they're saying it. Oftentimes, so you can give them that direct feedback and not wait until the shift is over. Try and give it throughout the day. Maybe that'll free up some time, on the spot, if you will, on the spot coaching.
Great. Another question is, how do you encourage a weaker link in the team without hurting their feelings?
Well, I think that people's perception is their reality, and how they perceive feedback, it's going to be the way that they take it. I think as long as you are leading with honesty and transparency, I also think that last conversation, or that person should always know where they're standing. So if you're having that one conversation, and then the 2 conversations and 3 conversations, it shouldn't be new to somebody. If you're, again, having that on the spot coaching, it's important. They shouldn't have any surprises. And if their feelings are hurt, you know, it's about the business. Though I say it all the time, it's about the business. It's not a personal attack. You know, we're doing what we need to do to get through the day. We're doing what we need to do for the team and, of course, for the business and the guests. So I would use those. That's fared well for me. It's not about you. It's about us getting the job done.
Okay, great. This is just some feedback, but it says, I love the response about the guest interaction. This is something that usually happens, especially in luxury hotels. There are some times with those difficult guests who also draw the line. So he liked your response.
Awesome.
Another question is, how do you keep, this is a personal question for you, Deb. How do you keep yourself curious? Do you read books, asking people for help? Who is your mentor? Yeah, how do you keep yourself curious?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly why I put this this slide in here for all of you. Hopefully we can share this with them, Kimberly. So yeah, I have professional coaches that I have reached out to, that I've built close relationships with over the years. I also mentor with Gleam Network. If you see at the bottom there, Gleam is for anybody in their stage in their career, whether it's an emerging leader or C-suite. I get mentored as well. I'm always asking, curious, reading these books. These books that I put here: Dare to Lead, The Power of Moments. Danny Meyer, for all of you that may or may not know who he is, he's Union Square Hospitality Group in New York City. He started Shake Shack, which I hope we all know in some way. Shake Shack, if you're on the East West Coast or wherever internationally. Yeah, I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly reading about the industry. I've signed up for multiple newsletters that I get every morning, and I'm constantly asking, raising my hand, and still being uncomfortable, and that's where I am in my intentional growth right now. I took a pause in my career in December to really focus on my values and what kind of work I want to be doing. And doing things like this with all of you is something that is something I'm deeply passionate about. So that's a great question. So I hope I answered it. Just try and stretch yourself. That's all I can say is you know, whether it's a certification or continued learning. LinkedIn has so many great courses. During COVID, I took multiple courses and things that I was curious about. Highly recommend, and they're free if you have that. I think it is something that you need to pay for, but yeah. So, and I'm happy to help and happy to answer any other questions, or my contact information is here. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we have one last question is, how can we be a better leader in the hospitality industry in hopes of growing ourselves into a management or director level position within like the next few years?
I would say, let it be known to your leader of your goals, right? So you might not have it fleshed out, and you might think to yourself, you know, for me, I don't have a straight line career. And what I mean by that is, you know, I started in the restaurant business and the bar business in New York, and then I started in talent acquisition and human resources, and then I went into work somewhere else in events. And so it's not that straight line, and it doesn't need to be. It needs to make sense for you. So what makes you feel good? Tell them. I would like to see myself, you know, if you're in hotels and you're in a restaurant, you know, maybe you are doing a lot of closes. Well, maybe you would like to see yourself doing some openings, and you want to get that experience of the morning and the morning guests. Or if you're at the front desk, you know, what it's like in another department, some cross-functional environment that you could, so, you know, insert yourself. I was always in the position before I was asked to be in the position, or before I got the title. To me, title, you're already doing the job, in my opinion. A lot of times, for some people, title matters, right? Title gives you that sense of purpose, but just insert yourself where you want to be, raise your hand, ask questions. And I think it'll prove you well. And if it doesn't, then, you got to go to somebody that can help you. Sometimes that leader only has the intentions of themselves. Unfortunately, that is the way of the world. But you are responsible for your career. Never forget that.
How do you prepare for your motivational speeches and ensure effective communication with your team?
Motivational, so like maybe pre-shifts.
Sure.
Yeah. I try and take at least 30 minutes before I sit down with the team, and I have to be just as prepared. What happened the day before? Celebrate the wins, celebrate the failures. Oftentimes, what worked last night? What didn't work? Asking again for feedback. Just go prepared. Go with a quote. Go with something that impacted you. Go with something that maybe was a complete disaster when you thought it was going to be was going to be a positive. But just sit down, prepare, and again, speak from the heart always.
Okay, and this is just some feedback for you, Deb. Absolutely agree with the idea of inserting ourselves. Indeed, we are sometimes in the position, even without being 100% ready. Thank you so much for this lecture. I love your motto, empower others. Those are some feedback one of our students gave.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. If I may say, to all of you, wherever you are in your career, embrace it. It is a long journey, and it is a very powerful one. And you take what you get what you get, you get what you put out, is what I'm trying to say. And this vulnerability is something that has been a work in progress, and I will always say it's empower, but inspire it at the same time, and it will prove you well in the long run. I promise. You may feel very, very uncomfortable, but lean into that, and don't take it as a sign of weakness. But make sure you're also not so vulnerable where you're going to get taken advantage of. Learn from the both sides of the coin. And I hope I can stay in touch with all of you. I hope I have my LinkedIn profile here. I'm available, and I would love to get to know some of you and help you on your journey as well.
Great, thank you so much. You want me to move to the next slide?
Yeah, I think this might be it, right?
Yeah. And on that note, again, thank you so much, Deb, for being our guest lecturer. I know personally, I have learned a lot. And I know, and especially from the responses we're getting in the chat from our students, that they have learned a lot as well. So thank you again. And everyone here, look out for our socials for future events. And thank you so much for everyone who participated for today. That is the end of today's guest lecture. So Deb, you can say a few more things, and then I'll end the meeting for everyone.
Just thank you again for all of you, and yeah, please connect with me so we can all stay in touch. I hope to see you again. I hope this won't be the last. I'm sure it won't be.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great day ahead, and have a great weekend. Thank you.